Hi, Steve Stolberg here with monthly painting video number 63, made in Kuala Lumpur, March 2019. This month I'm doing more of a straight pin-up type image. A woman lying on a sunlit carpet with pearls, some wine and a guitar, as you can see here. I can't decide what to call it: pearl necklace, which is a pun, or sunburst, which is also a pun, as you'll see later, or sex and drugs and rock and roll, which was a hit for Ian Dury and the Blockheads in 1977. Quite a nice song too, look it up. Sunburst is the name of that particular paint job on the guitar. I had a guitar similar to this when I was 15, my first instrument ever. It was a cheap copy of the classic Gibson ES 350. So these are the references I used. The first one I used for the face. I shot this photo myself when I was 25, roughly 34 years ago, when I was living in Sweden. I forget the name of the girl, it was such a long time ago. And as you can see, I've already started, and this is reference for the lighting. Yeah, as you see, I've already started. I finished all the drawing already, because that just takes so damn long and it's so boring to watch. Anyway, you can see it in many of my other videos. The only thing I did differently here was the pearls. I made a custom brush just for the pearls. If you zoom in, basically a circle with a single circle with a connecting little thingy, which is, you know, the thread that goes through the pearl necklace. And it was fairly easy and straightforward. You know, you just got to watch out for the line thickness of the brush. So I had to use two different brushes. The big one I did in a different way. The big one I just copied a circle, copy, you know, copy paste, move, you know. But the small ones, there are so many of the small ones, like these ones for instance. I just made it with a single brush stroke. Anyway, right now I'm selecting. Let's see. I'll start it up again. The background color is the carpet color, which dominates in this particular image. So to be able to fill in the flat colors here, I have to select cleanly. It's a bit tricky, but it's easy if you have a clean line drawing. This one is relatively clean. I didn't want to make it too clean. I wanted to have some softness to it, you know. Like here you see a little bit of softness to the lines. I didn't want it to be like super sharp technical. This makes it easier later to have it sort of nicely, artistically sort of overlaying the colors, especially soft materials like hair. It's not that important for machine parts like these ones up here. Strings and stuff, but for the hair you see, and the clothing, soft clothing. Anyway, you'll see that later, but right now, okay, so first editing the selection, and then I will invert it as is in a suitable way, you know, like if you're doing it depends, if you're doing the shirt you'd invert it here, or if you're doing the carpet you keep that one, but you have to grow it a little bit. You have to grow or shrink it so that this the edge of the selection ends up right in the middle of your line. So that's what I did there. You have to expand or shrink the selection area by a couple of pixels. And so I filled in the basic outline of the girl, and now I'm going for the guitar. And again, I'm going to have to invert it and expand the selection a little bit, or shrink the selection, as the case may be. By 2 pixels in this case, but it depends how large your image is, of course. And putting it here on its own separate layer, so it just functions as a mask at the same time. If you make it clean from the start, if you make it nice and clean selection from the start, then you don't have to edit it later. But of course you can edit it later too. It's easy to edit later. And as a third layer for the shirt, of course, it's easy to have the shirt on a separate layer. In this case I didn't think I needed to have the hair on a separate layer. I just included the hair on the same layer as the shirt, because they're similar in color, and they wherever they meet up, they're even more similar in color. Like it's like shadow against shadow. But you see, that's the trick. Wherever something meets up with something else, like here, for instance, the shirt meeting up with her skin, there's going to be quite a contrasty line. Quite a sharp edge is needed there, so that's why they're on separate layers. And I filled in quickly the light right there. This sort of, you could call this a sunburst too. The sunburst on the floor and the sun hitting her skin here. Just a flat color for now. I put the red wine in there as well. Now I'm putting some airbrush in, some basic shading. I guess you can call it ambient occlusion. It's sort of soft shadowing around the edges of objects, lying on top of other objects. But for the sun, for the shadows cast by this sunburst here, of course they have to be sharp for now. I'll soften this a little bit later, but you'll see that later. This is the sunburst design on the guitar, and I airbrushed it first, and then I used auto contrast and fade to sort of dial it in the way I want it to be. Actually, later I'll increase. Right now I'm airbrushing her skin, detailing her sunlit skin. I did already here in the shadows. You see a little bit, just a very basic shadowing there, single darker color on a simple airbrush, just airbrushing in a few strokes here and there. But for the guitar later, you'll see I'll add a bit more reddish red to the edge here around, because right now it's not enough. And detailing, shading the face. The hand. And now I'm working on two masks. There's going to be 3 layers here, but there's only 2 of these layers that I'm going to use. I'm going to merge them together. So you see here now I have 2 masks, and I don't use the masks in Photoshop. I just make my own. I just make a new layer, and I use whatever color, black and white in this case, but any color works, because you're just going to use the magic wand to select these areas later. So 2 areas to be selected. I wanted to have a warm edge on the inside of this edge and a cool edge on the outside of the shadow, where the shadow meets the highlight area. Now I'm going to get this wrong at first. You're going to see me invert it, and then I'm going to have to fix that after the fact, but it's easy to fix after, so you'll see. So putting the orange in the wrong place, right? I wanted the blue to be there. See, they're kind of inverted there. So easy to fix. I just changed the hue in the hue saturation window, and I just flipped the hue basically 180 degrees, and then I'm making them less obvious by reducing the transparency of the layers. And now I'm going to blur these areas a little bit, because you can see obviously these transitions are too sharp. Like this is what I was after, and yeah, I have to edit it a little bit there where it hit the wine, but and also here, and I have to edit a few things. And now I'm adding some shadow here, shadow detail cast by the pearls there, making the cable red. Electric cable to the electric guitar, and splitting up the guitar in two areas here, making it easier. Keep the sunburst on one area, makes it much easier to paint on paint manually the other areas like this. And there's an interesting mix of materials here. There is chrome, there is black plastic, there is the wooden area here, which is the sunburst. And I'm not going to worry about grain and stuff like that. I'm keeping this a bit stylized, a bit simplified. As you could probably guess from the kind of just having these outlines everywhere just makes it already look a little bit stylized and cartoony. Which is, it's both a decorative it adds a decorative touch, but it also a time-saving device. For instance, in my graphic novel, I use this technique instead of just painting everything without any edges. That would take forever. But yeah, I could have added some. There's the red I mentioned earlier. I could have added some wood grain on the guitar. It would have been fairly easy on an overlay, but nah, not for this one. Sometimes it's nice to have a clean, kind of the clean look too. Some of these lines are fairly clean and sharp, so now I'm working on the face, obviously. It's already halfway there. Now from here, all it is just more and more subtle work that needs to be taken care of. I'm using that photo that I showed earlier as reference. And it's too wishy-washy. It's very middle of the road right now, the colors, so I'm going to strengthen the contrast in the face. I'm going to darken it. And what I did just there with the outlines was I turned them slightly reddish, not reddish, but I mean I turned them reddish and then I faded it so the end result is kind of warm brown, which works better when you lay it on skin. And there already it's finished, and let me pause that. I'll just point out what I did here at the end. I strengthened the contrast on these, that second layer of the guitar I mentioned. I've darkened her face a bit and lifted up the contrast of the lighted parts a bit. The pearls haven't gotten any special treatment at all, except a few of these pearls right here. I did add a tiny little highlight on those, but nothing to the rest of them. A little bit of shading, darkening of these pearls right here. They're on their own layer. All the pearls are on their own layer, so that was very easy to do. A little bit of texture in the wine and texture on the carpet as well. So carpety kind of texture here, noise, and trying for a similar one here, but slightly different, because the wine soaking into the carpet, it will create a different texture. It will clump together some of the finer hairs here, so it may be somewhat rougher, the texture here. Yeah, this was a short, quick one because I had already finished all the drawing before I started. Yeah, that's it for this month. Hope you like it. Thanks for your support, and see you next month.